Say, this looks like a good spot to pull over and let you drive. Adjust that seat until you're most comfortable, Mr. Wright. Notice how easily it operates? It'll be a snap for your wife to adjust. How's that for comfort? That steering wheel angle keeps you from hunching over when you're driving. There's no back strain there either. Foot control locations give you a natural driving position.
So I'm ready to start on in the cab, and it's actually not that bad, okay? If you watched the 2 videos on the 48 wiring harness, then, you know, good for you. But that was actually a lot more work than this is going to be, okay? The great thing about dummy lights is they're exactly that. All you have to do is pop a bulb socket out the back of the instrument panel. And, you know, you don't have to undo a bunch of gauges. I don't have to pop the instrument panel out. Here in a row, I've got harness connectors for headlight, wipers, ignition, and heater. And then I got a wire going way out there for the blower motor. These are brake lights. These going down are dome light and fuel sender. So that goes down here. You can see them under the sill plate, which I'm not even going to attempt to get that off, because that'll just be the death of you. And they go up there, up to the dome light. And we'll go through how to get all that out and back in. And turn signal, I'm going to undo right here at that connector. I'm going to leave all this. I'm going to assume that the turn signal assembly is good for now. What else? That's about it, actually. And then we'll go back outside for the tail lights to finish up. And I do have a new cam and a new lever coming, so we'll pull the steering wheel off and replace that much of it. Alright, so I'm going to give these a little snip, just a little snippet. I don't want to lose them. Well, come on. Alright. Bend these in a hook shape. And I'm using another old wire I had on the shelf. I'm afraid string might break on me. Okay, let's pull her through. Okay, I got her this far, and I taped the fuel sender wire to our dome light wires, about in the same position. And if you're doing this and your wires seem kind of stubborn at this point, there is a clip on the back side of this door post, and you got to get that wire out of there. But we'll see if we can pull this out. I hope the slot under that sill is big enough for this. It might be so jammed with crud too that it may be very difficult. That started. Just keep working it back and forth. Well, in the end, there is just too much rust and crud packed in that channel to get those wires out. I was afraid that was going to be the case. But we had to try, right? So I'll struggle through getting these out, and then we'll have an easier time of replacing the wires. I will still use this wire to pull it back to the dome light. So it wasn't a completely wasted trip. Okay. Well, let's just see what we got here. Probably the rocks were the problem. I don't know. So what I'll do now is I'll grind those flush, center punch them, and drill them out to the right size again. And then we just run new screws down in there. Okay, well here's what it's looking like. I've got blower motor and resistor, heater controls, ignition switch, stop switch, wiper motor, wiper knob, ignition switch, dome light, fuel gauge, dimmer switch. What else? On and on we go. Gets to a certain point where you feel like nobody's pulled so many circuits since Hal flipped his lid.
Stacy, give me your answer too.
So I'll get to popping bulbs out, label them, and then we will pull this out. Got one dash light. No? Where is it? Oh, it's at the... That goes to the heater. The froster duct's in my way. Come on! Okay. This. That clips on there. All right. Just need to get in here, undo these two screws, and then pull that firewall connector out, and we will be home free. Well, there she is. So this little dude, this connector here, if you jam your cranium up underneath the dash right behind the instrument panel, this gets mounted above the steering column, and these two plug into that. So this is just the instrument harness, so that can come out separate if you're doing something separate. But otherwise, this is everything else other than taillights. So now I've got to make that somewhat resemble that, and we will put it in. And I think maybe I am going to clean this tailgate up before I begin, because it is a wreck. Alright, well, here's the original harness, and it's just kind of a sad, pathetic shell of its former self. Not many connectors left on there. So most of them are over here. I was very fortunate in this truck that almost every connector was still usable, and there wasn't hardly any corrosion on any of them. But I wanted to show you this before I finalized it and taped it all together. It doesn't seem like that much for the amount of hours a guy puts into it, but it is. So what I've got going on here, this is dome light and fuel, and that floor and rocker are so bad that I'm going to run this through loom and then put it under the sill, and then we'll cut it to length just for a little extra protection. All of this is pretty much what I have left over. Accessories, power straight from the battery, power from the ignition switch, electric fan, radio, anything he may want to add later that he does not have at the moment. I'm just going to tuck that up behind the dash, and he'll be able to pull that out if he wants to add something later. And then various switches and controls, connector, ooh, I need to clean that, connector at the firewall. This goes to the harness at the steering column, and just ignition switch, all sorts of things. This brown wire will go to the heater. The heater back then was still just an optional accessory, so it had its own wiring harness they would tie on to this harness, and so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to feed the power off that wire, but I will just zip tie or something the harness to the outside of this one once it's all connected. These go to our lights, tail lights, and backup lights. And this bit of loom here, this I need the male bullet connectors to crimp on here. I have them at home. And those get connected at the top of the transmission, and that's how where the switch was for your backup light feed. So other than that, that's pretty much it. This is going to the engine, wipers. So enough talk. We'll get this wrapped up, get it installed, and then we just have to do taillights. And on the taillights, this is the wire I had left over after doing the harness there, and that didn't look like quite enough to get from the firewall clear back here and cross the bed. So I stopped and bought this, and I will just use the 3 wires I need out of that. That's a 25-foot trailer harness for rewiring a trailer, or if you build your own trailer. So same color of wires, and I'll use those to get back here. Probably put them in a loom as well, and make everything nice and safe. And then we should be good to go. Okay, we got everything wrapped up for the most part. Like I said, I'm going to wait for the dome light and fuel gauge, put some loom on it, and I'll do that in the truck. For those of you who like to know, I use 3M's Super 33 Plus. Don't get the minus, it's very negative. Well, like I said, I put the loom on the wires, ran them down, will be under the sill plate, and I just went ahead and finished out the package of loom. So it'll be extra protection through the cab wall, and this is where the fuel sender wire gets branched off at the tank. So we'll pull this through up at the dome light. So this big old grommet, where are you? There you are. So this big old grommet that was on the end of this main harness going up front to the engine, that grommet was so stiff that I couldn't get it off of here. And it's a specialty grommet and I wanted to save it. So what I ended up doing was I tied this down in a bag full of brake fluid. You can see how grody it got. I zip tied it in there and I let that soak for 24 hours. And then I was able to pull it right out basically. It really softened it up well. So now I've got it, my terminals all greased up, and I just put a smear of dielectric grease on the plastic as well. And I don't know if I can do this with a camera in the hand, but let's give it a shot anyway. Yeah, that was so slick. Wow, I didn't even think it'd be that easy, but now that I got that, I think I can get this where I want it, and we'll screw that down. Now it's time for the last circuit of our journey. How poetic is that? I'm going to take the tail lights and the backup light harness loose there. Okay, here they're coming down, and it's just in a whole long series of these clips. That one's different. May have broken off at some point. But we're just going to undo all of these, pop it out, pull it out towards the back. Here's where it comes out at the bumper. We'll splice this connector in if it's good, and then going across underneath the tailgate we go to split off to each of the tail lights. So we'll pull all that out, and this barbed wire hanger that I've shown earlier actually wired the exhaust on over the wires, but you know, that's good. You get a good ground that way sometimes. These backup lights have got a nice little rubber connector here with a what I call a bullet connector. So we just pop those loose, and the new ones have the male half of that. And that's about it. I'll get to pulling this out. So this is the trailer wiring harness I was telling you about earlier. The white would just be a ground on a trailer. We don't need that. We need 3 wires for the tail lights, green, brown, and yellow, which we have green, brown, and tan, so that'll be good enough. Not that it matters, because I'm going to actually put it in a loom. And then the fourth wire for the backup lights is a light green, and I have a second tan, so I have 4 wires together. So we're just going to run with those, and we're going to reuse these harness connectors. I mean, they're in such good shape. I've been really kind of blown away how good all this is. So I'll clean those up. But I'm just going to start with snipping this off. And then we're going to snip this off. And we'll measure this out to the other end. Couple splices in this thing, so it's probably a very good idea that we're doing this. Okay, that and that. Looks like I got plenty of wire for the split off to the tail lights if I don't want to use that other stuff. So very good. I will splice these on either end. I need to come up with a connector for the backup lights at this end, because that's missing. Other than that, pretty self-explanatory. So here's the end result of that harness. I'm going to go ahead and just run it back through. I need to come up with a connector at the bumper for the tail lights. But we'll put that in, and then we'll pull the tail lights off and the harness out from behind the tailgate there. And then we'll be about done. Yeah, that is infinitely more flexible. That'll go back on really nice. we go. The last of the harnesses. The end of an era. I ended up putting a weather pack connector on the backup lance because I don't have a mate for this one right now, and I'm not going to look for one. And that'll be fine for now. Otherwise, it's time to put her back in. Or as a wise man once said, all that's left now is the finishing up. I realize this looks a bit like putting lipstick on a pig, but maybe it's the farmer's prize-winning sow. Then it starts to make sense, right? No, probably not. Now, the owner expressed a deep interest in doing a lot of these little smaller jobs, which who could blame him? So he brought me a box of lenses and bezels and lights and things. He did not bring new taillight lenses. The right one actually has a crack in it, but it's holding together. And he also needs gaskets for them. So I'm just going to make sure he realizes that, and for now just put these original ones back on. I cleaned them up, so they will look okay for now. So the last thing we're going to do on this electrical video is get into the turn signal here. I'm going to pop the horn button off. The horn doesn't work either, so we're going to see if we can find something wrong there. I'm going to go to the other side. Alright, you're in the driver's seat. So we're going to take this cup off that holds the horn button in. Also the contact for the horn. Yeah, it's just full of junk. Still got no horn. There's the button. It was full of crap. Still nothing. So I had to flush out this cavity just to even find the two holes that I need for my puller. So it might be very interesting to see what's all inside this column. Get this off. I think I'm going to try to clean these threads out a little better. Oh, I'm going to double check. There are index marks here on the wheel and the shaft. so bad. So wrong. Did it start? I don't know. Yeah, I think we're going. Well, the new Dorman canceling cam, or whatever they call it, is built a little off. The original screw doesn't fit through the hole, so I'm going to have to sand that down real quick. So for the screw, I just ran down to the hardware store, and basically what the original was, I got a number 8 sheet metal screw, longer than I needed, and I just snipped it off with, I snipped off the end, about 1/2 inch, 5/8 is what you need, although few of you probably have that problem. But you never know when you're working on these old things what you're going to run into. So that feels good. If you want to check your horn at this point, make sure it's working from here on out to the horn. Just touch this ring to the column, so we know that's all working, which it should, because it's all new. But we did it correctly, and that's worth noting. Okay, let's get the rest of this back together. Make sure your lines are marked up, or your lines are marked up, or your marks are lined up, whichever one you want. Concave, convex. You want it the concave portion down. Now it can be kind of tricky to get this all lined up so that it works right, because you got a couple things that are spring loaded, and Chevy kind of did you a favor here. So this is the notch for the top of your horn button, that little rubber tab right there. So that goes on top, and there's a hole on the bottom of the cup, so you can put that in there and use a small screwdriver or a bit or something and keep all that lined up perfectly. Keep the slot in the spring steel disc lined up with that hole. And then hopefully when you run this plastic ring down in there, those round tabs won't compress that spring steel disc. I'm sure there's a fancy name for it, but see, it's a little off to the side now. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm gonna move it back if I can. Take that tension off a little bit. That's probably got it. As soon as I hook up the battery, we'll see. So far, so good. Excellent. Turn signal cancels, so we're good to go. Well, hey guys, see something strange going on here? Well, we're aiming headlights. I decided it might be fun to do an entire video using these old aimers. That's just not something you see anymore. But anyway, let's finish adjusting. I'm adjusting the horizontal aim on the left, or excuse me, on the right side. From the front it's the left. And does it there. Now I have to check it again here, and it's off a little. So I'm just gonna have to go. I can't have my arm in the way, for goodness sake. That's in line. Okay, that's the horizontal alignment, side to side. So guys, I'm going to go ahead and get these finished up. That's the last step in the electrical that I had to do. So that's the end of this video. We'll take one final look at everything I did on here, and then you'll just have to come back and we'll drive this thing for the first time in many years. So let's look things over real quick as a review, and then we will test all the lights and be done with it. So everything is taped like it was from the factory, wired in like it was from the factory. Basically factory gauge wire. We're not adding any extra power load to anything here. Oil pressure, starter, ignition, coolant temp. Our firewall connections are all the originals. Blower motor coming through there. There's all our tail lights. Backup light harness below it. Now we won't bother looking in the frame. It's just wire loom. Line going to the gauge, or for the fuel sender, and then those dang dome lights from this era, they fall apart in your hands, you know it? So he'll have to get that, but I do have the bulb in there working. And then we got our dome light in loom, and that and the fuel sender wire going through the sill plate there. Dimmer switch. All that good stuff up there, all the extra wire we didn't need, but I tied it up there in case he needs it. And just everything else, wipers, heater, you know, we're looking at wires. I don't know what you want. Here's one thing I don't think I've ever worked on. The backup lamp switch on the shifter lever or arm. That was actually stuck down when I got it, and I cleaned it out, and that just makes a ground when you put her in reverse there. So that's pretty cool. And I'll show you those lamps glowing for us in a minute. Oh, and I need to put the glove box back in. But let's check out everything. Let's check out the lights. Alright, I know it's going to be a little dark in here, but hey, we're looking at lights. What more do you want? So let's turn the headlights on. We've got our dimmer switch working on the dash. And dome light already flashed at me. The sad, pathetic, broken dome light. Alright, so let's check out the rear first. Park lights should be on. Now brake lights. Left turn, our indicator's going. Right turn, our indicator's going. We'll go into reverse. Our backup lamps should be on. Now we're going to hit left again. Okay, we should have headlights on low beams, high beams, and we have our bright indicator. Left turn signal. Right turn signal again. And park lamps. Very good. Horn. Excellent. Well guys, there you go. A completely new electrical system on the 66 Chevy. Two things that are not operable are the heater and the wiper motor. they arrived DOA, and we're going to let the owner tinker around with that. He's looking for things to do on this thing, so that will work great. And actually the wiper motor may be in the switch too, so. But I know we've got power to the motor, so. Anyway, thanks a lot for coming along. Next video, we're going to drive the bugger, so you won't want to miss that.
Our salesman knows that once a prospect gets behind the wheel, chances are he'll sell himself. All the salesman has to do is let the prospect concentrate on driving. The salesman will only answer questions and comment on a sales point the prospect may make. However, he does urge the prospect to give the truck a real shakedown. He knows that a Chevrolet truck can take it and keep coming back for more. He's letting it sell itself.